What kind of husband and father could I be? Well, Stephen King likes to depict white, middle-class families in his novels as dysfunctional, where the husband/father is abusive toward the wife and children. You see, living in the New World Order is very stressful. It can feel like life has no meaning. Often a person will work their whole life and will have nothing to show for it. Things are getting more and more expensive, all by design. As if that isn't bad enough, the entertainment media created for us is designed to mock the miserable conditions we're all put in. Those involved in Freemasonry who swear allegiance to the Jewish tribe's goal of world domination will be rewarded with ownership of businesses that they don't even have to work themselves, such as an auto dealership or something like that. The kids of Masonic parents are often rewarded with successful YouTube channels. Tanner Fox, who was birthed into the Bavarian Illuminati tribe, simply plays with rich people toys all day. There are YouTubers that are travel vloggers, and they just travel to exotic locations all the time. These aren't just random people, they are special privileged people who are born into the tribe. The ways of life that they depict in these YouTube videos makes it seem as if USA is a great and wealthy nation, when it's not. It's only like that for those who founded it. The Goyim are conditioned to believe in something called the American Dream, which can drive the Goyim insane and violent when they can't realize it, because they never understood that they were never meant to realize it. And so these miserable conditions can push your buttons and make you into a psychological wreck. In consequence, you could end up being an abusive husband, like Norman Daniels in Rose Madder. You get angry and you whip your kid with a belt for some small stupid thing because you're so wound up, so crazy irritated by the fact that you can't live like a travel vlogger, and instead you just have to work and work and work and barely make ends meet. Because the New World Order irritates the person, makes the person crazy. For example, here's the kind of father I might be, if I could be a father. This is from Stephen King's book, It. The Corcoran boy came to school one day, about 3 weeks before his disappearance, with both eyes nearly closed shut, I guess from being punched in the face by his dad. When I asked him what happened, he said his father had taken him up for not eating his supper. See, my own child will annoy me, because the whole world is annoying. I won't be able to sleep properly because I'll have to work to support the family, and my mind will go even more unhinged because of that. So if my son doesn't eat supper, I won't be able to control myself, and I'll be like, "I'm taking you up, boy." The irritations inflicted on me by the New World Order will be taken out on my children and wife. You see, as a teenager, the person beat his dog when it irritated him, and he would create verbal sayings or certain noises that the dog would then associate as a signal that it is about to be hit or kicked. The person walks around fuming in rage that forensic science exists, for example, and ends up unable to stop himself from kicking the dog in rage. You see how the world is designed to drive you mad? A person in the 17th century wouldn't have to be enraged that forensic science exists. But it's unfair that a person in a 21st century does have to be enraged because of that. So it makes sense that this father in this book would create like a kind of unique phrase that is associated with him being mad and signals that he has a violent impulse coming on. Daddy has to take me up because I am bad. Here's another one. The fingers were swelled up like sausages. When I asked Dorsey what happened, he said that his father, stepfather Richard P. Macklin, had bent his fingers back because he had walked across a floor his mother had just washed and waxed. So that's the kind of thing the person might do to his son if he has a son. If he has a daughter, he'll behave toward her like Beverly's father does in this book. Like, tell her she's been stupid and do a 1-2 punch in her abdomen. For example, the person will be busy typing his novel and the girl makes some kind of a loud noise that distracts the person, and to the person it feels like a gong was just banged next to his head, because the person will gain frayed, oversensitive nerves. Well, she's gonna take a fist in the gut for playing too loudly. Gonna have to take her up. Daddy's brain is fraying because he is stressed, and he has to work, and he's not used to living like that. He's always lived like a teenager with no obligations, who is being taken care of by his parents. Here's another example of physical abuse from a father. In this book, the kid slammed the screen door and woke up his father from a nap, so his father threw him with his back against coat hooks, and the kid pissed blood for 2 weeks from busted kidneys. Well, who else likes taking naps? Me. And a lot of naps will be needed if I have to work to take care of a family. By the way, there will always be financial problems in my family. As the NWO plods full speed ahead, the economy will be crashed and massive inflation will devalue the dollar, all by design. Everyone will be working 5 times as hard for 5 times less. It will be like Weimar Germany before Hitler, where you needed a barrel of cash just to buy bread. In that situation, the person will be driven more insane. This kind of abusive spouse/parent thing is normal in almost every white family. Listen to people share their life stories with Stefan Molyneux. Like, some guy said that his dad would take him to the garage and spank him hard when he was a kid. Just spank him for whatever. The beating of children and domestic abuse is very common. Usually the way it works with these families is either the father or the mother are crazy abusive toward their kids, and only in private. Stefan Molyneux talks about how his own mother was beating the shit out of him as a child for the smallest things. But usually the abuse manifests only in private. Otherwise, when these individuals are out in public with strangers or at work, with friends, they appear like wonderful, level-headed people, kind and smiling and polite. You'd never think they could be monsters. The reason for that is, deep inside, these people actually want to beat the shit out of or kill either the politicians or their own bosses at work or customers for fucking up their lives. But they can't. They'll go to prison if they do, even the smallest malign thing to these entities. These parents are forced to bottle up their rage against those who deserve it, and then take it out on family members or their children. And that's what allows them to be perfectly functional in society. That's how they get along with everyone else and seem so nice. That's because in the privacy of their home, they exorcise their anger demons, on their children. My job sucks, my financial situation sucks, my health sucks, my marriage sucks, but at least I can gain some joy from sadistically beating my kid. If they didn't blow off steam by abusing their kids, they would have long ago assaulted their boss for not paying them enough, or assaulted a highway patrolman for writing them a ticket. Such a people generally don't like to be reminded that the government or the system is causing their rage, or the police is causing their rage. If a child tells them that, the child will be beaten for stating something so obnoxious and disrespectful of authority. These people tend to defend the very authority that causes their misery, while taking out that misery on their children, because that's how they've been brainwashed. The government is good, the children are bad and disobedient. That's because these people don't want to admit that the enemy is something they are powerless to do anything about. They'd rather see the kid as a problem and claim it's all the fault of the kid for being annoying, because they can control the kid, but they can't control the police, for example. So, the person will end up reading things like that the government will soon float surveillance balloons over every neighborhood. And, for example, this will upset the person, and the person will lash out at his own son if he annoys him in some way by beating up his kidneys so he pisses blood. In addition, by the time the kid or kids are 5 years old, the person will be teaching them vulgar terminology and cuss words and jokes. So at such a young age, they'll learn to say the kind of things that I play into the microphone to troll players on Call of Duty. If the wife tries to stop the person will hit the wife. The person will also be pissed off that domestic violence laws exist, just to make his life harder. And that will also make the person want to lash out at the wife and kids as well, because the person can't lash out at those who made the actual laws. Just marvel at the irony of this. A person lashes out with domestic violence because he is pissed off that domestic violence laws exist. Just marvel at the irony of that. As a family, we'll most likely be living in a rented trailer or a double wide, or a container converted into a house or something, because we'll be lucky if we can afford even that. This will serve to make life even more miserable. Maybe on top of being a family abuser, the person will give in to drinking alcohol to drown out misery, which will make the person even more irritated and susceptible to beating the kids and the wife. The wife will have to be one of those women who, now and again, explains away the bruises on her face and body as accidents to her friends and neighbors. She better not call the police on the person, because the person will then lose the shitty job he has, and she and the kids will be out on the street. And she'll have to fear if the person might kill her as well once the person gets out of jail. Life is made hard by the New World Order, where poverty reigns, while Jewish bankers are swimming in billions. And on top of that, we're all being turned autistic with toxins and vaccines, and are made more and more powerless against the system by the day. Stephen King has depicted white people living this kind of life many times. Washed out, burned out, alcoholics, drug addicted, wife beaters, suicidal, aging and full of regrets in life, and so on. There are people who call up Stefan Molyneux that speak of this type of dysfunctionality in their own families while growing up. There are middle-aged white people calling in, regretting that they spent so much time on a career and never had children. That's just the way of things. We will not be some kind of a Masonic family, where Freemasonry hooks us up with a free business to own, that makes us $2 million a year and demands no physical effort to run. Those are the only families where fathers aren't made insane enough to beat their children, families who live in houses like this. So we arrive at the question, what sexy women want to sign up for this kind of life with me? This is what they generally would call white trash life. A life where the teenage boy who is raised in such a family goes to school and offhandedly tells his friends that his old man beats him. Yeah, my old man beats me every other night. By the way, the wife, despite suffering occasional domestic abuse, has to maintain a sexy figure like this in order to keep me pleased. If she fails to do so, if the husband catches her eating a donut that she shouldn't be eating, and thus gaining weight, he will beat her. Read how Beverly's husband in the novel It reacts to her smoking, and how he beats her up. It'll be something like that. Also, the husband might rape his wife occasionally. When the person has sex with the wife, he will prefer to pose her into a position of helplessness, because that will arouse him more. So he might pin the wife's arms straight out, so she has to be helpless on her back while he pounds her. The wife will never be able to convince anyone that her husband rapes her sometimes because, well, it's a husband and wife. And the defense that it was actually consensual would be extremely hard to negate. So, what sexy ladies might want to sign up for a white trash life like that with me? And wasn't this whole thing very humorous too?